Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have started the afternoon lecture session. We are going over functions and parameters. So let's go ahead and get into it. Going to the platform here, functions and parameters. And here we are. Back to our light bulb. And here in our light bulb, we've seen here this before. We have the keyword function, and we have then after that, the name of the function, toggle flashlight. So just like a variable is initiated by that keyword var, function is initiated by the keyword function, then a space, and then we say the name of the function, toggle flashlight. All right, so we have our function and our function name. We're having one more part here, this parentheses that says flashlight in it. So this is the place where it receives something. Right here, it's receiving a flashlight. Then we have the beginning of the do something section and the very end here at the bottom. In the middle, we have everything that we want it to do. Lines 2 through 6. Everything that we need it to do. But the function itself starts at line 1 and ends at line 7. Okay, let's take this short quiz to get our brain juices moving, and then I will use the blackboard on the next page here. Okay. What line do you think helps the computer program determine if the flashlight is on? Dun, 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 dun. Okay. If flashlight is on, okay, we said that for line 2. Next question. What do you think is the name of this function? Function, toggle flashlight, flashlight.isOn, or flashlight. What's the name of the function? The name of the function is toggle flashlight. That's the green section. It comes right after function. And if the flashlight is previously turned off and we want to run the function, what would you expect it to happen? Now, if the flashlight is previously turned off, what would you expect this function to do? Turn on, turn off, blink on and off, on and off. We said 1, okay? And here we have our results. So let's get into the syntax of a function. All right. So here we have the keyword function. And I'm going to call this function example. Here's my example function. We have the keyword, we have the name. What else do we need here? We're building parentheses, yes. Right now, we're not going to run anything inside the parentheses, so I'll just keep it closed and short like this. What else?
Curly brackets.
Curly brackets. So we have our opening and closing curly brackets. Now, inside here is where I'll have the do something section. And I will say console log. I'm going to console log the word hello. Okay. This is what our function does. Now, if we have this function just as it is here, defined on our page or wherever we're running our function, by itself, it's not going to run. Okay, I'll use a couple analogies. Here we have the, imagine this here is like a microwave, okay? This here is the microwave. This here is like the food, okay? I'll make it yellow. We put the food in the microwave, but just because we put the food in the microwave doesn't mean it's going to start on its own, okay? Unless you have some sort of extremely smart microwave that as soon as you put it in there, right? That's not going to happen. What we need to do is press the start button. So how do we do that? We call the name of the function right here. So we say example. And then we say parentheses. Okay. This will start the function. This is the start button, the power button. Okay. Let's use another analogy. This area here is the recipe in the cookbook. This here is the cooking of it. This starts the process. This is the spell in the spell book. Imagine like a Harry Potter book or something. This here is the waving of the wand. This tells it start. For sports fans, this is the team going into position. Okay, this is the quarterback saying hike. That gets it to start. Okay, without the function call, everything is just ready to be played, ready to start, but it's not going to do anything unless you call the function. Okay, so you need to call the function in order for it to work. All right, now that being said, let's do another example here. So function example. I'll call this one example 2. Then we need a parentheses. Now in this parentheses, I'm going to put something in there. I'm going to put a placeholder there. I'm going to put like a placeholder, let's call it number. Okay. This number there, what we're going to do with this number is console log it. Okay, so inside this do something section, we're going to say console.log number. Okay, this knows what number is based on this original value. Now, if we were to run this function by itself, okay, we're gonna say start the function. So we're gonna call the function name example. Okay, if we call it just like this, our program is going to start the function, but then it's going to run into an error. It's going to say, hold on a second, you told me to console log number, but you didn't tell me what number, what's the value of number. You just said a variable called number. It's going to be undefined. So we need to put something in here. Let's put the number 22. Okay, just a random number. If we call this function now with this number, it's going to now pass this in to here. It's going to pass it in there. And once we pass it in here, this 22 into there, then we can use it in our function however we'd like. Now, when we call number, we're calling number 22. So our console is going to have, a print of 22. Okay, this is a very simple concept. All I'm trying to introduce is we have to have the keyword function. Oh, and guess what? I called the function wrong. I'm supposed to put a 2 here. Okay, let's start over. We have the keyword function. We have the name of the function. We have the parentheses here. And something can be in the parentheses, something can not be in there. But in this case, we do have something in the parentheses. We have the starting and the closing of the function here. And then we have what we want the function to do in the middle. In addition, we have the function call. Okay, this is the function call. Otherwise known as the invocation. The invocation. Okay, whatever we pass in this parentheses here in the invocation gets called in. It gets placed into our placeholder here. Okay, then this placeholder takes in whatever we put in here. We can call our function multiple times and give it different values. So let's say we call it with, we say example 2, and this time we call it with the number 13. So this function is actually going to run twice now. It's going to run the first time with the number 13, the second time with the number 22. So our console is going to have 13 and 22 in it. Okay, however many times you call the function with this invocation is how many times the function is going to run. The function is going to run with whatever you put inside the invocation here. The value you put into the invocation is going to go into the placeholder, and whatever you call the placeholder, you can use inside the do something area. Okay. Okay, let's get a poll just to make sure this is sticking in.
Quick question. Can you just, instead of writing example 2 twice, are you able to just like do 13, 22 or?
Well, if I wanted to say 13, 22, what then the function example 2 would be expecting is 2 placeholder values. So no, you have to call it, if you want to call it twice, then you have to write it twice.
Oh, okay.
If you want to call it with multiple placeholder values, then you have to write a comma here and put another value in, and a comma here on your function call and another value. Good question. But just on what I'm asking now is how well do we think we understand this writing the function, keyword function, the function name, the placeholder, start in the beginning, the do something section and the function call. Okay, I'll start the poll now. Based on your guys' feedback is how much I know that I need to reiterate this or re-explain it. So it's good that you guys give me some honest feedback here. I don't care what grade you guys give me, just so I know what I need to do. Okay, we'll go over this again. Maybe we'll do another explanation in a few minutes, but let's just let it saturate for a minute or two. Okay, so here we have the function call. So then what do we call this here? Someone say it.
Name of
Function name.
Yeah, name of function, but what do we call this? What's the technical term I've called it? Starts with an I.
Invocation.
Invocation. Yes, this is the function call or the invocation. So this is the call, right? We've defined it. Now we're calling the name. Get started. All right. Here we have another example. We have a function called count to 5. Function called count to 5. And it runs a for loop. Right now, we don't care what it does. We just know that we have a function called count to 5. And so like the computer, when we're reading this, we're going to say, okay, I acknowledge you have a function. It does something in here. Okay, where does it start and where does it end? Okay. And then we see, oh, it's getting called. So we need to do this function. So then we go into the function and then we read what it's supposed to do. And because it's written twice, count to 5 is written twice, this function will run twice. Okay. Count to 5 is going to run twice in a row. If it was written again below here, then it would run a third time. Okay. If I said count to 5, then it would run a third time. However many times I call this function, however many times I call the name of it and write those two parentheses is how many times the function is going to run. Okay, so let's read this here. Since the function count to 5 is now declared and defined, okay, we've declared it. It's declared, it's defined. We can call on it as many times as we'd like. This is true. We can call this function, make it run as many times as we need. You might be wondering what all this stuff in between the open and closing parentheses does. Good. You can learn about completing the algo apps lessons 1 through 4. Okay, whatever. This is just a for loop. We went over this morning. It could be an if statement. It could just be a console log. What we want to walk away with is that once we define a function, we can call on it as many times as we'd like to get it to start. It's not going to run by itself if we don't call it. Okay? We have to tell it to go. We need to tell it to start. If we just define it like this without giving it a call, it's not going to start. Functions are powerful and grow in complexity. Throughout the bootcamp, you'll learn a lot more functions. Okay, yeah, obviously. So we're just going to...
I have a question. So you keep saying it's not going to start. So I'm assuming you mean starting and running are different things, right? Because we've been running like some of our programming and like we get a result without the function. So exactly how is this adding value?
So, for example, like when you write a for loop and you get it to console log, right? Is that what you mean? Like without the function
Yeah.
wrapping it? Okay, that's a good question. Fair question. So let's go to trace, and I will demonstrate something for the answer for that question. I'm glad you asked. So here we are, trace. Okay. Console.log hello. Okay, ignore this and ignore this. Okay, I'm trying to get the trace people to delete these things so that we're not distracted by this. Okay, for now, just keep your eyes on this. Okay, like when we're entering JavaScript, we're just looking at this. When we run this, it will console log hello. Okay, it's preparing. It's going to run in a second here. In fact, I might just skip this here because it disrupts our train of thought. I'll do this instead. What if I go to Google? Okay. So here we have a console. We can write JavaScript in here and say console.log hello. And it will run. By itself, anything that we tell to do in JavaScript, it's going to do. So printed hello in the console. We're writing in the console now. Now I'm going to write a for loop. For I var I equals 0, while I is less than 5, I plus plus. And for everything in between, I'm going to say console.log hello. Okay, so here we have a for loop, and we're going to console log hello 5 times. So we'll run this. Did I miss something there? Okay. Trace has led me down here.
If you still have the tab, then it was just your curly bracket at the end, or the
Okay.
close parentheses at the
This-
end for the curly bracket.
Okay, this is better for us anyway. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
So here we're going to write some JavaScript on the left-hand side. We're going to have our result on the right. So for I var I equals 0, while I is less than 5, I plus plus, and inside I'm going to console log hello. And if I run this, you'll see here on the right hand side, we'll get 5 hellos, right? As soon as we run it, it will do a for loop, a naked for loop. Now let's go ahead and clear this section. Now I'm going to write this in an official function. So I'm going to say function example. Here's the opening. Now I need to make the closing one here. So here's the opening curly, here's the closing. Now let's just run this. Okay, we have the same for loop, but now it's wrapped in a function. When I run it, the console is run. I mean, the code is running, but it doesn't show anything on the console. That's because as soon as it's wrapped in a function, in an official function name, it needs to be called, it needs to be invoked in order for it to start. So I need to call example. Here's the function call, example, with the open and close parentheses. Now it will print hello 5 times. Do you see that?
But you had the same results with and without the function. So I'm trying to understand what value the function adds.
What value the function adds is whenever we play, let's say we have a lot of code on our JavaScript page that we're running, and we don't want it to run right away. Let's say we just want this to run on a button click, and we attach this function call to a button click. Okay, we don't, just because we define a function doesn't mean that we want it to always run by itself. Okay, it's good that we're able to make JavaScript run with the for loop, but now we need to make it run on call. It's like we want the microwave to start only now when we press the start button, not just start the moment it's built. Okay, or we want the car to run the moment we turn the key, not just the moment we build the car, it's going to start running away. We need it now to have some control. So we're going to put a shell over it, this function example. And now we're going to say only when we say start, do we want the insides to start. We only want the engine to run now when we turn the key. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So now when we call it, and let's clear the console. Now I'll call it twice. Example, example. So how many times should we see hello on the right side?
10.
That's right. There's 10 hellos. If we do it a third time, 15. There's 15 hellos. I think it just goes so far down. There it is, 15. All right, let's get another status check on this one. I'm asking here now, how well do we understand defining a function and why we need to create a function call? Okay, let's continue. Okay, so now that we've defined our functions, we know what calls them, we know how to get them to start as soon as we wrap them in that function beginning and end, keyword function, the name function, the area we put in our inputs. Let's go look at our code challenge predict. What will be the console log when this function is called? We call this here. So what does this do?
I was born in 1980.
Exactly. Easy answer. It's just going to run this console log. does whatever is in the do something section. Here we have our second function. Now we have that input that we had right here in the parentheses when we first write the function. In our function call, we gave the value for that input there. Okay, so this value here goes here. So now what is our console log going to say?
I was born in 1980.
There we go. Okay, now we have a bit more difficulty here. We have a function add. Okay, function add has two parameters, two placeholders. So when we run this function now, what do we expect to happen? Function add takes in num1. So what goes into num1?
10.
I heard someone say something.
10.
10, yes. So num1 takes in 10. And what does num2 take then?
20.
Yes. So then we say the first thing it's going to do, it's going to console log summing numbers. The second thing it does, it says console log this string, num1 is plus, and then it adds to, it takes in num1. We said num1 was going to be 10, right? So num1 is 10. That's going to be the second console log. The third console log is going to say num2 is, someone finish my statement?
20
Yes.
plus 20.
Yes. It's going to say num2 is, this plus just adds that number to the string, to the console. Lastly, we say var sum. Now we're creating a variable inside our function. This variable now exists inside our function. Var sum equals num1 plus num2. That gets saved here to that variable. That variable is equal to num1 plus num2. So now when we console log the sum, what do we get?
30.
30.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and copy this here. Let's run it. So first we get the console log summing numbers. Then we say num1 is 10. Then we say num2 is 20. And then we declared this variable, sum equals num1 plus num2. So then when we console log the sum, we get a third line, 30. Console log 30. Okay, it's all based on what we entered here in this function call, the function invocation. All right, cool, let's continue. Okay, until now we've used console log to display information to us as developers. However, that's not very useful for anyone else. It's only useful for us developers, okay? We're the ones that see the console. Us developers are the ones that see the console, not the users. Take a look below and see what patterns you might be able to see regarding the thing called return. Okay, let's look at these returns. What do we notice about these returns? First one here, we have a function called getFirstNameForm. Okay. Inside, then we say create a variable called first name, make it equal to Juan. Then the console log here. In the console log, we say the first name variable has been assigned a value. Okay, so just a variable, just the console log, and then we return something. Return first name. Let's see what this does when we copy it over to our JavaScript runner. Okay. So here we have a function. And so I know if I want to start the function, I have to call the name, get first name from form. Then I say the two parentheses. Now, if I press play, what do we expect to happen? Anyone have a guess? What's going to print on this right-hand side?
1, maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Line 4.
Line 4. Anything else?
Hmm.
Let's see it. Okay. We only got the console log. We only got the console log. I wonder why that is. Okay. What if we do something else here? Let's now console log. Let's console log the function call. Let's take this. Let's cut and paste it in there. Now let's see what happens. We're going to console log. We're going to print to this area, just the developer area, this whole function. Now we get both. So what's going on here? I'll tell you what's happening. What's happening is we're console logging the function call. So it's going to run and it's going to print to our console the run itself. The difference now is that in addition to console logging what it's told to do, it also console logs Juan. Okay, why is it doing this? Why is it console logging Juan when we wrap it in a console log, but when we run it by itself, it doesn't? Okay, here's the reason, right? The reason is the function, and pay close attention here, the function now is equivalent to its return. So whatever we say for it to return is going to be equivalent to the function. This here gives value to this now. So whatever we say return, if we say return first name, the value of this function is now that first name that we'd said, var first name Juan. Okay. So this gets passed into the return, gets passed here. The return then gives it back to the function call. So then when we console log get first name from form, excuse me, when we console log, we're also console logging this. And now this has a value because we said return. Okay, so here's another thing to remember. A function call is equivalent to its return. A function is equivalent to its return. I'll write it down here. A function is equivalent equivalent, oh man, horrible speller, to its return.
So do you get rid of calling the function if you have a return? Is that why you're not calling the function?
No, the function is being called. It's now just being called inside of a console log. So when we say console log, we're asking it to print to our special screen, right? And now this function itself has a value. If we don't console log it, it still has a value. Okay? This return still gives the value of first name, which we said was Juan. It still gives the value to here. But without this console log, we're not asking it to print. We're not asking it to print that value at all. The only thing that was done here was to print console log. Okay, it was very specific. Return does not print to the console. It does not print to the special area. The only way we can see the value of the return is if we get the value of if we ask to print the function itself. And by print, I mean console log. Okay. I know this may be a simple but difficult concept to understand. I know it was for me when I first learned it. But know this. The return value, whatever we tell it to return, is going to give this function a value. Whatever we tell it. In this case, we say first name. What if we say return 5? What do we expect it to do now? Let's say if I just run it like this, the way I have everything like this now, what's going to happen here on the right-hand side? What do we expect to see now?
Instead of 1, it's going to print 5.
Well, look at the way we have this here.
Oh.
Wouldn't it print the first name variable has been assigned a value and then 1 5 times?
Well, let's see here. If we just run it, it just console logs this. Look at the way we called our function.
Oh, yeah.
This function has been given the value of 5. In order to see the console print 5, we have to say console log, wrap it in these parentheses here. Now I will run it. So now the second time we ran it, we got the first name, we got this console log, and then we said return 5, just pure 5, the number itself. So whatever we tell it to return is going to give that value to this function. When we console log this function, we're telling it to run, but we're also telling it to print the value. The value is 5 now. We've given this value to this. This is now given to this. Okay, let's do a status check here. Okay, eventually this is going to click. This is going to click eventually. Now, rule 2 about the return. There's another thing to the return. When we say return, we are also saying exit the function. Finish this function. Whatever we were doing in this function, we're now done as soon as we hit the return. Okay, so so we're going to read through our JavaScript line just as we would if we were the machine. Line 1, nothing. Line 2, oh, we have a function being called, declared. Okay, so we have a function declared. Function get first name. Okay, that's the name of it. All right, doesn't take anything. It starts here, and it has some stuff in the middle and ends here. Okay, I know it exists. And then it goes down to line 8, 9, 10, and then it goes to here, and then it says, oh, okay, you want me to do this function. You want me to start the machine. Okay, so let's go to the machine. Let's start it. It goes, then it reads this and does it. Okay, now it takes a note. Okay, all right, I'm T-diagramming. First name equals Juan. Got it. Okay, console log. Okay, you want me to console log? All right, I'll do it. It prints to the console. And then it says return first name. And then that T diagram that the machine is running, it gives this the value of this. So let me try and T diagram this for you guys.
So what you're saying is that if there's code after the word, after line 5, it's not going to execute it?
Yes, after line 5, it finishes. So what happens then if we cut this console log and paste it after the return? What would happen now? If we put this console log after the return, if we press play, if we run it, what's going to happen? Let's try it.
Nothing's going to print.
Exactly. Nothing's going to print because we just declared this first name. Okay. The computer saved it. It's in its memory. And then as soon as we return, it saves that name, first name, to this thing. But it doesn't console log. It doesn't run this. It doesn't, because as soon as we get to the return, everything after the return is now irrelevant because it finishes the function on the return. Exit the function. If we put the console log before, then okay, this will work. This will do what we want it to do. All right, let's try and do one more thing here. I'm going to T-diagram what's going on here. Here's my T-diagram in the white section. Var and val. I want to say value, why not? Variable and value. Okay. So we see the functions defined. Okay, we understand there's a definition. Okay, now it says start the machine here. Okay, so we've started. Now when we start it, we'll start T-diagramming. Var first name. Okay, so then we have var first name. We said it was going to equal Juan, right? So we'll say Juan. Then console log, the first name variable has been assigned a value. Okay, so let's print it in the console. The first name variable has been assigned a value. Now it's in our console. We've printed it to our console. And now we say return first name. Okay, so then what this means is that this variable, it's like we're giving another, adding something else to our T diagram. First name from, how can I move this to the left? There we go. Form. Okay. And what do I put on the right side of this now? What am I putting on the right side of this T diagram?
Is it the console log?
What did I tell it to return?
Oh, the first name.
Right. So the return is going to be the value for the function. So what do we put?
1.
Yes. Okay. We have first name given a value. And then we said return first name. So that means give this function, get first name from form. It now has the same value as what we said first name was. First name's value is Juan. So then this function's value is Juan. So this is all that it did. It console logged this thing and it saved these values in its own T diagram. Okay. The machine has its own T diagram that it's saving its values to. The reason we T diagram is so that we can think like the machine, that we can run it as it does. So now, what if I say console log? What if I say console log? This. Let's T diagram this. Variable value. Okay. So now we read our function from beginning to end. We get to line 12, and now inside this console log, we have a function call. So we still have to do the function. Okay, but now we're console logging the value of the function itself. Okay, so now let's do this. We read through the function var first name. Okay, so let's give first name something. First name. And it says the value is Juan. Then we go to line 4. Console log the first name variable has been assigned a value. Okay, so let's do this. The first name variable has been assigned a value. Okay, we've console logged that, check. Now return first name. Okay, so now this function has the value of first name, which is Juan. So we'll write this in our T diagram. Get first name from form. Okay, its value is going to be Juan. And because we said to console log this thing here, see, where's my tools here? Because we said to console log this, then we're going to write it to our console now. And what's its value? It's 1. So then we're going to write here 1. So our console now, whenever we wrap the function call inside the console, we're going to print the return value. Let's do another poll. Okay. Let's move on. So let's take a quiz here. Which of the following people would see the console log? The developer in their console or the user in their app? Option 1, okay. In code snippet 2, this one here, what does the return value tip do provide? The amount of bill total multiplied by tip percent, the tip percent, or the console logs? Okay, we're saying 1. And the reason we're saying 1 is because tip due is equal to bill total times tip percent. That's what we're returning. So these are the results. And here we're going to reiterate what returns are. And then we're almost at the end of the time for lecture, so we'll wrap it up here. Okay. We have been using console log a lot because it allows us as developers to see what's going on. While useful, besides printing something to the screen and helping us debug, it doesn't really do anything. It just prints to the special screen. Now that we know about functions, it's important to learn about the return statement. The return statement works differently from console log because it does something within the function, while the console log just displays something to the developers in the console. Suppose we wanted to have a function that could create a pre-populated array of numbers. Okay, so here we have a function, and here we have an array. With this code, calling the function creates an array 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but then when the function ends, this array is promptly lost because we have no reference to it. Okay, it's lost because we have no reference to it. Even if we print the console, we wouldn't be able to do anything with the array later on. This is where returns are really important. The thing that we return is the true output of the function. A function statement also serves to end the function immediately. A return statement also serves to end the function immediately. So just because we print it to the console doesn't mean we can do anything with it. It's just an area that we print it to, okay? The return is what really gives it a value to the function. If our function made ice cream cones, console log would be the equivalent of the ice cream man saying, "I've got some ice cream," where the return statement is the ice cream man actually handing you the ice cream cone. Okay? The console log is just a place where you can print the proof of it. Okay, it's like I say, "I have $100 for you." I take a picture and I send it to you. That's equivalent to the console log. You can see an image of it. It's printed, but it's not the same as me handing you the $100. When a function is called, the value that is returned gets sent back to the piece of code it was called from. Let's add a return statement and a variable to our code from above. Okay, so we have a function, create array, then we have a variable, new array, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we return it. Okay, return new array. So now this function has some value. It's the value of the variable. And now here on this line, we're creating a variable that equals the value of the function. So what is the value of need an array?
Zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Exactly. That's exactly right. the value of variable need in array is equal to this function call, create array. Create array, the value of this function is its return, new array. New array's value is the value here that we gave to new array. So new array gets passed to the return gets passed to the function. This function's value gets assigned to this new variable, need an array. And so now need an array equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do another pull check here. Do we understand how this works?
So is the purpose of that just so you can use the value of that function in an ongoing function?
Yeah. Now you can pass around that value to something else. You can do something with it. It's malleable. You can use it in another function call if you want. You can now that you have assigned a variable, what if you want to, you can console log that variable. You can change that variable. You can add to it. Okay, let's continue here and then we'll move along. So here we have the code challenge return. For each code snippet, create a T diagram. Create a single text document or a photograph of the T diagrams. You can use this on pencil and paper as long as it's legible, and submit a photo. So here are some code snippets. They have console logs, they have invocations, they have returns. What you want to do is T diagram everything now. T diagram. There are multiple function calls now. So you have to think, how many times is the console going to print with these function calls? This is what we've been doing in the Algo app. Okay, it's just glossing over it so we know what we're running into.
And that last one, can you go back just
Yep.
1 second?
Yep.
And the code snippet 10, the very last one. Is that a mistake or is that supposed to be there? Because that was confusing me at the last line or the third to last line. Var result equals sum nums 2, 3 plus sum nums 3, sum nums 2, 1. Is the
No,
3 supposed to be there?
That's not a mistake.
Okay.
So now this function call, it's a function call within a function call, right?
So it's only calling the first number then. It's only calling num1.
It's calling it's giving 3 to num1.
Uh-huh.
And
Sure.
it's giving this whole function call to num2.
Huh. Okay.
Okay, it's a bit tricky, but once we are able to get to this level of understanding, it should click in our head. Like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I ain't there yet.
Okay, we'll get there. We just introduced this today.
Yep.
Okay, now we have also this practice assignment code challenge debug. We've attached trace to this here. There's something wrong here. There's something wrong here, and we have to figure out what it is in order to make it work. Correct the code so that it prints the greeting. So something here we need to fix so that we get this working. Again, remember trace, ignore the first and last thing. Okay? It's simplified now, right? It's easier to see. Fix something here. All right. Now, parameters. We went over this at the beginning of the lecture, so there's no need to panic about something new. All we're doing here is passing in parameters, values into the parameters. So for example, for this first function call, Martin gets passed into person. Okay, so now when we do greet someone the first time, person gets passed here, here to here. Okay. If person equals Martin, console log this. Else, do this. Okay, the first time it is Martin. So we're gonna pass that first if statement test. Okay. The second time we call it, we're passing Jerry on to now person. Person, if person is equal to Martin, do this. Person is not equal to Martin the second time we call this function. It's equal to Jerry. So anything else, we're going to print this here. Greetings, Earthling. I'll read this here and then we'll go over the last assignment and that will be it for the day. You might notice the code above that there are curly braces that are not alone on their own lines. Like these here. Like other examples you may have seen, the JavaScript language does not care whether you give these their own lines or include them at the end of the previous line, as long as they're present. Really, braces are a way to indicate the system some number of lines of code that it should treat as a single group. Without these, if, else, or for statements will only provide a single line of code. So what this is saying is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you put the braces. So let's copy this here. This will still work if it's all in one line. Okay. This will still work if it's all in one line. In fact, we can even make it like this. Function all in one line. It looks ugly because then we have to like parse through. It's like we're reading ancient Greek or something. But it's going to look easier if we put the braces on their own line, an indent like this, right? Isn't this easier to read? Yeah. So that's all that's saying. It's a lot of words to say that. Okay. Lastly, we have this practice assignment parameters. So using what we've learned about functions and parameters, create a function that given a name will say good day to that person by name. For example, when calling a function like this, greet Anakin, it would log the console good day Anakin. Further customize your function by including the time of day in your greeting. 3. You and Count Dooku are enemies. Further customize your code to say, I'm coming for you, Count Dooku, if your function is called with Count Dooku. Okay, that's the practice assignment. So for today, we want to get through code challenge parameters. We're going to work on these assignments: code challenge return, code challenge debug, and parameters. And we're going to read up and through belt tips and strategies so that tomorrow we get to prep all day for the exam at 3. Okay, the exam is just 10 questions. You need to get 8 of them right to pass. 8 out of 10 to pass. You get a retake on Friday as well. So if you don't pass it on Thursday, then you get to review what you got wrong and take another version of the test. It's not going to be exactly the same. You get to take another version of the test on Friday. After you do the test on Thursday, if you don't pass, we're going to review with you to make sure you understand how to pass it on Friday. Okay, but you need an 8 out of 10.
How will that be structured? Will it be like multiple choice, or are we writing our own code? Or
We're going to give you functions, and we're going to ask you, well, a couple of them. By couple, I mean two or three of them. We're going to ask you to build a function. The rest of them, we're going to ask you to predict the output of a function. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. With that, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We'll do some self-learning. We'll do some assignments. I'll be jumping around the rooms along with Kaya to make sure that we're all caught up in our understanding. Okay, guys? So thank you again for your participation. Let's see here. I'll lighten up the mood.